It's already week 5 of the fantasy football season. That means you need to know who to put in and who to keep out of your lineup. We'll go through all the games for week 5 and tell you who you should be starting and who you should be sitting. There are still some players that you have to keep in there no matter what the matchup is. Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Devon Achane, and Saquon Barkley if he plays. There are 4 teams that will not be in action this week. That would be the Browns, the Seahawks, the Chargers, and the Buccaneers. Before we get to those teams that are playing, a quick announcement for you.
Introducing our new app, Draft Lane. Connect with us anytime for your start sit, waiver questions, and more. We can instantly access your roster and tell you the exact right moves to make. Access your past leagues and climb the Draft Lane leaderboard and see how you stack up against your competitors. Both Yahoo and Sleeper are supported. Download Draft Lane today and use the promo code ENDGAME to receive $10 in your account. Available on the App Store and Google Play.
First matchup of this week will be the Bears at the Commanders. You know, this may not be the high-scoring game of the week, but it got a lot more interesting after these teams performed in week 4 and actually put up some points. So let's start with Khalil Herbert in Chicago. Had himself his best game of the season. Do we see that he's coming on maybe? Is he somebody who now is startable?
I don't know. I mean, I talked about it on the Sneaky Starts video, and I liked him because it felt like it was a game where game script would be on his side. I'm not sure I feel that way in this game. I don't think the Commanders are going to blow him out, but it's a tough run defense. But there are 4 teams on bye, so I think he's at least startable, but nothing more than a start him if you need him kind of guy this week.
Yeah, he's a guy who's kind of ready to just give up on, and I don't mean not just like don't start, but maybe he doesn't have to be rostered. Rashawn Johnson was coming on, but all of a sudden here comes Herbert again. Who knows? Who knows what this Bears offense is going to give us? I really don't want Herbert in my lineup. It's just so unpredictable here. He's always got some big playability and upside, but like you said, you're trusting the Bears offense here in the rushing offense, so desperation start. And then Rashawn Johnson, just when we thought he was taking over, all of a sudden he plummeted. I think he was on the field less than a quarter of the offensive snaps. What do you do with him?
Yeah, don't feel good about him this week. This is probably not going to be a blowout, which means we're not going to see a lot of Rashawn Johnson. I am not starting him.
Yeah, you can. He's always been a solid hold and stash and wait and see. You really don't want to put him in your lineup, and that was even before last week. So you could keep him on your bench, but that's it. And then there's Brian Robinson of Washington. Again, solid, maybe not spectacular, but still good, even against a tough Eagles defense. Now against the Bears. Too good to be true?
Yeah, you pretty much have to start Brian Robinson unless you have 2 really good options. It's a great matchup. He's looked good. He's got to be in your lineup.
Yeah, you'd have to have 2 absolute stud running backs to sit Brian Robinson. If I got him, I want to find a way to put him in my lineup. What about Antonio Gibson? Been pretty quiet lately. The fact that it's the Bears, does that make him at least a flex option?
No, still not enough, even with the matchup here. Very, very, very risky. I would prefer to sit him.
Yeah, the volume just isn't there. Gibson, even in this great matchup, you can't put him in there. Jacksonville still in London. This time they get to face the Buffalo Bills, who just did a number on the Dolphins offensively. So let's start with Etienne against this Bills defense. What does he do?
Yeah, this could definitely be a letdown spot. I know Achane came through last week, but look, he gets used in these creative ways that allows him to use his speed. Etienne's used more like a traditional runner, and this Buffalo Bills run defense is very good. But I still think if you have Etienne, you just have to roll with him and take whatever you get.
Yeah, Etienne's kind of settling in as a set and forget, kind of high-end RB2. A little less volatile, which is, I guess, both good and bad. Look, this Bills defense has given up some big runs. I think you start him. Again, you'd have to have somehow really, really spectacular options ahead of him, but you're probably starting him no matter what if you have him. On the other side, James Cook, still the lead back, going against the Jags. Where does he fit in?
You got to like James Cook. He actually got used around the goal line last week. Hallelujah. I think James Cook, one of these guys, unless you have really good options, if you have James Cook, you're starting him.
I'll just say I'm coming to the point where I don't think there's going to be much difference between Travis Etienne and James Cook. So I'll put Cook again as a solid RB2. Back in the States, we got the Texans at the Falcons, 2 teams that, well, are, I guess, surprisingly good so far. We'll see if that lasts. Start with the Texans and Damian Pierce. Against the Falcons, should be solid, right?
I don't know. I mean, the Falcons defense hasn't been horrible, and the Texans run game has been horrible. So, I mean, I guess with 4 teams on bye, he's getting the volume. He's startable, but that's as high as I can go.
He's been disappointing. He scored a couple touchdowns, but the efficiency is not there. Some of these metrics say he's underachieving. This whole run offense is underwhelming because they're passing it so much. So you can roll him out there, but to me, he's more like an RB3. And then, of course, in Atlanta, Bijan has taken over. Does Algier have any intrigue?
I mean, you're going to look, you're going to see it's the Texans. Oh, he's got a chance, but he really doesn't. I mean, he's going to have to fall into the end zone. Even against the Texans, I can't do it.
And that's one big thing is, we were saying start any running back against Houston. It looks like that might be fading at least a little bit. They're not, this year's Denver. I guess Denver's last year's Houston as far as run defense. So, yeah, Algier just not getting the volume. You can't start him. Carolina Panthers still looking for win number 1 on the season. They get to go to Detroit. Let's start with Miles Sanders, who was a little banged up and a little underutilized last week. Can he produce in this matchup?
Yeah, I liked him last week, but of course he was far from 100%. Don't like him this week. Detroit, really good on defense across the board. I mean, I'm not going to say you have to bench Miles Sanders because there's not a lot of running backs that get the kind of volume Miles Sanders gets, but he's only a start him if you need him guy for me.
Yeah, I mean, to me, him and Pierce both look like solid values. In draft season, they're guys who are still getting the bulk of the touches. It's just the efficiency is not there. I don't know, just not enough upside for me. Again, I'm dropping him down to the RB3 territory. Only start him if you need him. Now, Chuba Hubbard did get more usage, maybe because Sanders not at full health. Can Hubbard produce more than Sanders?
Probably not, and you got to think Sanders is going to be healthier. I can't risk it with Chuba Hubbard. I'm not starting him.
Yeah, I think it would take Sanders just being out completely for me to start Hubbard. I don't think that's the case this week, so I'll pass on Chuba. And then there's Monty. We saw a 3-touchdown game from David Montgomery. I guess he's the lead back in Detroit. No surprise there, is it? Is he must start the way he's performing?
I'm not going to say must start, but I think he's a good start this week. Carolina run defense doesn't scare me. He's always got touchdown upside. I think if you've got David Montgomery, more often than not, you're starting him.
It's hard not to start him. You can compare him to Jamal Williams last year, touchdowns. I think he's a little bit better than Jamal Williams in terms of shiftiness, and he's gaining more chunks of yardage. I think David Montgomery at this point, you almost have to keep him in your lineup, and nothing about this matchup scares me. Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe another question. I mean, again, hard to keep that talent on the bench, but I guess Dan Campbell has no problem doing that. Should we?
Yeah, again, if this was like a full slate with all 16 games, maybe I would say I would sit Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm going to put him in the start him if you need him category, but you can't feel good. And this doesn't feel like the type of game where Detroit's going to be throwing the ball a lot, using him. It kind of feels similar to last week's game, going to be slow paced. Detroit's probably going to be in control. I'm only starting Gibbs if I have to.
Yeah, that upside is always there, and this run defense, nothing great. But again, just wish there was more volume. So he's startable, but again, kind of borderline RB2/3 in a 12-team league. Titans at the Colts. Derrick Henry, still a no-doubter. Tyjae Spears, though, has been making some noise, and he's getting on the field. Is he startable?
I mean, you'd have to be very desperate. This doesn't feel like a game like we saw a couple weeks ago where the Titans are getting blown out and Henry's not even playing. Should be a close game. Should be a fairly competitive game. I can't do it with Tyjae Spears, even with 4 teams on bye.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a guy who shouldn't be out there on waivers. You want to roster him if he's out there, but you shouldn't be starting him. And now for the big question. Jonathan Taylor, as far as we know, could be ready to play in Week 5 if everything goes well. He's healthy, could be activated, assuming he's not traded. So what if JT suits up for Indianapolis? Is he just an instant automatic start?
He is for me. I know it's a tough matchup. I know there's risk that maybe he only plays half the snaps, but you've been holding Jonathan Taylor for 4 weeks. Did you hold him just to bench him when he's finally active? I didn't. If I got JT and he's playing, he's in my lineup.
I mean, I hate to read into things that are said from coaches or media or publicly, but it seems like everybody's, getting along here that, he actually might play for the Colts. So if he's playing, I mean, you got to play him. He's healthy, he's fresh, he's ready, and you'd think he'd be motivated. So if he's playing, I think you got to start him. But what does that mean for Zach Moss? Is this guy who looked like a waiver wire savior all of a sudden just relegated to the bench completely?
If Jonathan Taylor plays, he is. Now, if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, if they're like, he's not quite ready yet, then I think you can still start Zach Moss. I don't like Zach Moss this week. It's Tennessee. It's one of the best run defenses, but he's at least startable if Jonathan Taylor is out.
Yeah, exactly. The Tennessee run defense, we talk about this all the time, really tough against the run. So Zach Moss, as it is kind of a fringe start. If JT is active, you probably shouldn't put him in your lineup. So, man, I would just say if you have Zach Moss, just sell now while you can. Giants going to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Good chance Saquon Barkley does play. If he doesn't, then we still get Matt Breida as a starter. Would Breida interest you?
I mean, interest is a strong word, but look, again, I'm going to say he's at least startable. I'm not completely scared of the Dolphins defense. He gets the run. He has a chance to score. He's startable.
Yeah, Dolphins defense, especially the run defense, has been underachieving. Just because there's bye weeks and injuries and desperation, Breida is on the radar, but barely. And then at this point, we have to say the rookie Achane is a must start. There's no way you're benching him. Raheem Mostert looked like he was going to be a must start, and now all of a sudden, it looks like he's taking a back seat. So what do we do with him?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you probably are still starting him. I'm not going to just completely give up on him after one bad game. We know McDaniels likes him. We know he's probably still going to be the lead back here. So I think he's still startable this week.
Yeah, I would say he's definitely startable. You remember last week against Buffalo, I mean, they were just behind from the jump, and Buffalo just could not stop scoring. So there's no way the Dolphins could really establish the run. I think it's a different story. They're back home. They're playing the Giants. I think Mostert will bounce back. So he's a solid RB2. Saints at the Patriots. Alvin Kamara's back, and just like that, he's catching a ton of passes. Not a ton of yards, but still, he handled pretty much all the work in the backfield. So are we going to see the Alvin Kamara of old?
No, we're not going to see the Alvin Kamara of old. What you're hoping for is that he catches double-digit passes again, which is probably unlikely. It's a tough matchup against the Patriots, but I mean, look, like you said, he's getting all the volume here. Unless you have two really good options, you're probably starting Alvin Kamara.
Definitely a tougher spot here at New England. And Derek Carr didn't look like he was ready to start. I'm not sure why they even put him out there, and that's why he got a ton of dump offs. He'll be okay based on volume. In full PPR, he is startable. But yeah, the upside that people are expecting just won't be there. Ramondre Stevenson has given us almost no upside this season. Really rough start for him, averaging less than 3 yards per carry. Now gets us tough Saints defense. Is this the week we put Ramondre on the bench?
I can't say you have to outright bench Ramondre Stevenson because, again, there's not a lot of running backs getting the volume he's getting. But if you have better options, you should bench him. This is a brutal matchup, so he's going to be in that start him only if you need him category for me.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to give up on him, but got to take a hard look at the numbers here. This whole offense is in flux, the quarterback situation. So he is benchable, but only if you have two players you definitely feel better about. And then the Zeke revenge game didn't happen. This whole New England offense just didn't happen. Can we consider Zeke against New Orleans?
No, I'm benching Zeke pretty easily.
Yeah, there's no reason. If he couldn't do anything last week, why would he do anything this week? Baltimore going to take on Pittsburgh. Let's talk about Gus Edwards. Looked like he is the guy there. Got most of the touches for Baltimore's backfield. Is he a solid start?
He's an okay start for me. I think he's certainly startable. The Steelers' run defense, the whole Steelers team is just nothing to worry about, to be honest. So, again, I'm going to put him maybe better than some of the other guys we talked about. Like, I prefer him over Ramondre, but not a guy you have to start, but definitely startable if you need him.
I may be overly optimistic here, but I like Gus this week a lot. I think he could have a big week. You know, he's a guy who's an efficient runner. If he's going to get most of the touches here, this matchup could be a prime spot for him. And then Najee Harris, I mean, a lot of talk. Is it him? Is it the offensive line? Is it everything? What is it? And what do you do with Najee?
It's the usage. I mean, he ran for 71 yards. Didn't he run for over 5 yards per carry on Sunday? I mean, but it's the usage. There's no usage here. It's terrible for fantasy. Against the Ravens, you can't start Najee Harris.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Is it doesn't really matter who's to blame. It's not happening. The results aren't there. I mean, the possibility of Mitch Trubisky at quarterback doesn't inspire me. So I'm going to say you probably should be sitting Najee. And I'm going to say the same thing with Jalen Warren. It's not like he's interesting to me anymore.
No, in this matchup against Baltimore, I'm going to sit both these running backs.
Bengals taking on the Cardinals. Got a couple of workhorse veteran running backs here. Start with Joe Mixon. Well, Bengals also struggling. Can they get anything going, at least the run game in Arizona?
I think they can. This is a good matchup for Joe Mixon. I think maybe with the way Burrow's playing, they lean on him a little bit more. I think Joe Mixon this week is a solid start.
I'm going to agree. I think he's solid. Usage is there. You know, they really should be running the ball more with as bad as Burrow has looked. Maybe they will. And I think he's kind of one of those guys that you kind of feel comfortable, at least you have him this week with all the buys. And then likewise for James Conner going against Cincinnati, this matchup isn't too scary.
No, they just gave up 120 yards and a touchdown to Derrick Henry, who people were worried was dust after week 3. James Conner's looked great this year. I think if you got James Conner, you're starting him.
Yeah, you feel good if you drafted Conner, but again, like before the season, we thought this could be a lopsided game. You know, a guy like Conner could get scripted out. Now we're thinking Arizona has a good chance to win this game, and game script won't be an issue. If I have James Conner, I'm happy, and I'm definitely starting him. Next, we got the Eagles taking on the Rams. Start with DeAndre Swift, who seems to be pretty happy playing in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and you should be happy if you have DeAndre Swift this week. This is a smash spot for DeAndre Swift. I'm going to talk about him more in a different video. All I'll say right now is if you've got DeAndre Swift, get him in your lineup.
Yeah, a guy that don't even question it. So much upside. And not only should you be starting in fantasy, but you know that every week Underdog has pick-em lines for you. Well, right now, early in the week, we have him at 64.5 rushing yards, going higher. I mean, look at what he's done the last couple weeks since he's been the guy there. I mean, against this Rams defense, sure, they got Aaron Donald, but there's nothing else that's going to make me worry about Swift, his big play potential. So combine that DeAndre Swift 64.5 higher rushing yards along with new customer special. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, try it out. Thursday night, Justin Fields just needs a yard. You take that pick, you combine it with Swift, and then right there you can triple your money. Just make sure you use promo code ENDGAME to get a deposit match of 100%, and then you can triple your money if you combine that Swift and the Fields pick. This is for new customers. They're always doing specials for existing customers as well. Take those freebies. And then for the Rams, it's all Kyren Williams. I mean, it's almost to the point where I hate to admit it, but he's almost just no doubt you have to start him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brutal matchup against the Eagles, but he's got touchdown upside. He catches passes. If you got Kyren Williams, you're starting Kyren Williams.
Jets at the Broncos, matchup everyone's been waiting for. All right, so let's start with Breece Hall. We know how epically bad Denver's run defense has been. Is this a spot to trust Breece?
Trust is a strong word, but I think he's at least startable this week. Like, if you don't have better options, he can rip off long runs. He had another nice long run on Sunday. It's the Broncos. Not a guy I'm going to say you have to start, but if you need him, you can start him.
Every year there seems to be a defense that just gets steamrolled every week. Like, doesn't matter who it is. We've seen Breece Hall put those big runs up against teams like you said, Kansas City and Buffalo. Why not against Denver? I mean, give it a shot. He's got that upside. He doesn't even need to get a lot of carries here. So I'm not going to force him in my lineup, but I think Hall is a very interesting flex play. Dalvin Cook is not in any way interesting. I mean, just even against Denver, right? Even against this defense, could he do something?
No, it really feels like this might be the last year Dalvin Cook is in the NFL. No way I'm starting him.
Now in Denver, we know Javonte Williams has been the lead guy, but suffered a hip flexor. Going to be questionable for sure this week. If he manages to go, would you start him against this Jets defense?
No, I mean, he already looked pretty not good with the knee injury, now dealing with a hip, going up against the Jets. I know the Pacheco just had a nice game against them, but I'm not banking on that from Javonte. I'm not starting him.
I don't think I've said yes to Javonte Williams starting at any point this season. Coming off an injury, definitely not going to change my mind. Now, if Javonte Williams doesn't play, does Samaje Perine become a guy that we should be interested in?
Not really. He hasn't looked that good. It's the Jets. Even if Javonte is out, I don't think I could start Perine.
He's been disappointing so far. I don't think we can trust him in any way, so I'll say no to Perine. I'm more interested, but I want to get your take on a guy that was mentioned in the waiver wire video and beat the breakout the week before. Hopefully you stashed Jaleel McLaughlin. Had 104 yards and a touchdown last week total. But is that enough to make you want to start him?
No, I stash him, yes, but start him, no. Let me see him get more involved first.
Gonna agree there. I mean, unless you're one of these teams that is looking at guys like Matt Breida or Tajay Spears, okay, sure, then you can go with McLaughlin. But otherwise, best not to risk it. Chiefs at the Vikings. Isaiah Pacheco had himself a nice game on Sunday night in week 4. Now against the Vikings. Is that a matchup you want to take advantage of?
It is. I didn't like him against the Jets, but he came through. But it feels like this is a much better matchup against the Vikings. He should be able to come through again. I think if you got Pacheco, you're starting him.
I mean, normally I'd say this is a game where the Chiefs can go pass happy, but they've had more questions about their pass offense than their rushing offense this year. Yeah, Pacheco, a very solid RB2 this week. So if you have him, you should feel pretty good. Jerick McKinnon, I mean, he is what he is, not getting many touches, but he seems to find the end zone on occasion. So is this matchup against his former team going to be a chance to flex him?
I mean, you'd have to be extremely desperate. You're really banking on a touchdown here. I'm not doing it. I'm going to sit Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah, I think you'd have to be extremely lucky to put him in there and then find that he does score 1 or 2 touchdowns. I'm sure it could happen, but that's not the kind of risk you want to take. And then Alexander Mattison has looked inspired the last couple of weeks. The rushing average has jumped up with Cam Akers on the roster. So against the Chiefs, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's getting the volume. He's getting the touches. With 4 teams on bye, it's not the worst matchup. I think you have to start him.
I'm still a little leery here, but it's not like Akers is really stealing touches from him. If he's going to keep being that efficient, then sure, he's an RB2 that you can consider. On Sunday night, the Cowboys are going to take on the 49ers. If you have Tony Pollard or Christian McCaffrey, there's no question to ask. You're starting them, and it doesn't seem like any of the backups here are worth starting, are they?
No.
And then Monday night, we got the Packers at the Raiders. Let's start with Aaron Jones. Back, if he's healthy, is he a guy that you feel is a solid start?
Yeah, you got to feel good about him in this matchup against the Raiders. I know he killed you in week 4, but don't give up. He should bounce back this week. If you got Aaron Jones, start Aaron Jones.
I mean, it's the Raiders. This is a great spot for him. He's going to be up and down. That's fine. This is definitely a matchup you want to try to take advantage of having Aaron Jones. So I think he's a really good start this week. A.J. Dillon, I mean, does it even matter the matchup with him?
No, doesn't matter the matchup. I cannot start A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, not sure the reason. He's just been super inefficient, and Aaron Jones is healthy, so Dillon is definitely someone to bench. Now you know what to do with all the running backs on your roster that you might have. What about wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, trade, waiver wire, everything you need to win in fantasy? We got you covered right here. Check our Week 5 playlist out.